and almost afternoon now. Thank you for staying up for this session. It's not easy to be the last session before lunch, but I hope this will be a really interesting session because we have three fantastic speakers here with us today. And we have a very, very interesting topic. Can AI startups really find success in Southeast Asia? That's a big, big question. Before that, my name is Fanny. I am from Google Cloud, based in Singapore, but I cover the Southeast Asia region with the VCs and their portfolio companies around Google ecosystem. So very happy to be here. We shall kick off with an introduction, but not just a normal introduction, guys. Let's kick off with a short answer. Can AI startups really find success in Southeast Asia? And also introduce yourself and the company and why Southeast Asia. Let's start with Jerry, maybe.
Thank you so much. And a little bit introduction myself. My name is Jerry. I'm CEO of Whale. Whale is a company, enterprise AI company focusing on the retail consumer sectors to help in the marketing and sales. So just to answer the question, so we're heavily invested in the Southern region. It's one of the most important regions we have. We see a lot of opportunities, especially in the consumer sectors. We see a lot of consumer, like brands are coming into this region. For example, BYD, we work with those companies a lot. They are adopting a lot of AI. So that's one of the key that we have a lot of see growing opportunities in this region.
Good to hear, and it's a good start. I will ask more questions later, but maybe, Korawat, do you want to talk a little bit about why Southeast Asia and maybe about yourself and the company?
Yeah, hi. I'm Korawat, founder at Amity. So Amity is, we basically, we have a core AI business and team, and we acquire software companies. So we're what we call a roll-up play. We acquire software companies with very high potential for Gen AI. We are actually 13 years old, but most recently we shifted to this roll-up about 3 years ago. We do about $140 million in turnover, and we have about 800 employees. Our business is between mostly in Thailand and Malaysia and Europe. So just to answer the question, I think it's a very complicated and actually in depth. And what is the definition of success? For an AI company in Southeast Asia, I think that we have to think a little bit creatively. So in our case, as I just briefly mentioned, we produce and build in Southeast Asia, but we do a lot of our investment and distribution and sales in a larger, more mature market like Europe, for example. So I think we're going to go in deeper, but just it really depends on the approach and kind of what your definition of success is, I think.
There's a good balance to leverage the resources here in Southeast Asia, but also the market overseas, right? How about investors' perspective? Let's hear from Abraham. Let's talk about yourself, the company, and then, of course, answering the question.
Hi, everyone. I'm Abraham. I'm the managing partner of Skystar Capital. We are one of the earliest VC here in Indonesia, focusing on Indonesia and also Southeast Asian startups. So far, we've invested into about 50 to 60 companies. Some good exits, I think around 10 exits along the way. So we've grown together with the tech industry in Indonesia, and we are always optimistic about the prospect of Southeast Asia and Indonesia. And the answer to that question is absolutely yes, but let's discuss more.
Great, it sounds like we have a yes, yes, and yes. Deeper questions here. Tell us maybe the challenges and the opportunities in Southeast Asia, specifically to what you are doing, how you are seeing the market evolving based on your experience in the company that you're building. Jerry?
That's a great question. So we do face it's a place where we have a lot of countries saying for AI infrastructures, we are facing a lot of opportunity, both opportunity and challenges. I'll see the challenge part first. So for AI infrastructures, we see a lot of large language models are built either from the US or from China. They have a lot of data actually are feed from the US or China. So there are fewer data over there. So for example, for language models, we see many different languages here. We have to adapt those AI models to those languages. For example, in Indonesia, we have Bahasa. The Bahasa language also have a lot of varieties. We work with the sales actually to understand their conversation with the customers. So that we have to invest a lot in terms of the adoption of those AI models to make sure that they fit into the regions. So these are challenges, but I think it's still a large. It's one of the largest population, like in whole as a Southern Asia. We have a large population, very high growth of the economy. The other very interesting thing is that we see a lot of end users adopting AI directly, just passing the original, like we call it digitalization. They are called AIization. So if we go to the US, we have to facing that they have old infrastructure for already 20 years of old infrastructure, IT infrastructures. But here, it's easy, like, hey, let's do the AI first. Like if we are doing like, we work with the retail stores, for example, they just want to use the AI camera instead of the common normal cameras at the very beginning to build up the company. So we think it's both a challenge and an opportunity for us to actually to use AI in this space. We see more actually the growth part. So that's why we are investing in this place and we see a lot of growth over there as well. Yeah.
Can I just ask one more question? Because you're also really high growth. You have kind of expanded to multiple countries in a very short period of time. I mean, Southeast Asia, we all know, is really fragmented. How do you do that, and how is AI playing a part?
Also a good question. So we see a lot of partners. We work with, for example, Google Cloud. We work with a lot of cloud companies. We work together. A lot of partners in different countries as well to facilitate the adoption of the AI in the region. The other thing is that because a lot of our customers, they actually work cross borders. We have like for example, MAP. They work both in Indonesia, Malaysia. We also have. They actually looking at the region as a whole. So that's why we think it's a more collaboration for both our end customers, partners, clouds, and also our like AI service vendors working together in this region to actually build the whole thing up.
So finding the right resources, partners in the ecosystem to enable you to accelerate the growth, right? Good point. Hearing from Korawat, you have a slightly different perspective on this because of your the European part of side of things, right? Because you've acquired quite a number of companies there and in the UK. What is your thought on that? What are the challenges and opportunities? Because you're also looking at outside of Southeast Asia.
Yeah, so I think first of all, there's two kind of categories, right? There's a B2B software and there's consumer, right? So I'm not in consumer, so we're B2B software. So consumer, I think the market is very large and there's a lot of potential for different types of products, right? But if you look at B2B and software, it's a very different game, right? And software and B2B is a matter of scale at the end of the day, fundamentally. Obviously there are exceptions, but there's a reason why there isn't a Salesforce of Southeast Asia or a Atlassian of Southeast Asia. The fact of the matter is that our absolute market size just isn't big enough, right? Southeast Asia as a whole, is about 4 trillion-ish in GDP, which is roughly the same size as Germany and the UK, right? And the issue is that you have guys that are winning and number one in much bigger markets like the US and China, and then coming to Southeast Asia after, and we just simply don't have the market size to keep up with them, right? I think actually, sorry, Jerry is actually a great example because you mentioned to me that you're quite big, you're very big in China, and you said that half of your revenue comes from China, and you're starting from a very big market. You have a very big advantage. And, you come here, you can out-engineer us, and you can out-engineer local companies, and you have a lot more a bigger base, right? I think that's a great example. Is that at the end of the day, the way that we see it as Amity is that there are only three $20 trillion markets, right? In terms of countries with over 20 trillion in GDP. And that means that $20 trillion, if they put that in perspective, is 5 to 6 times bigger than Southeast Asia. So that's, China, Europe, and the United States. And the way we see it is that if we're going to be a globally competitive AI company with scale, or AI software company with scale, we have to be a market leader, in one of these big markets. Otherwise, if we are only focused on Southeast Asia, we think it's going to be difficult in the long run to build something of great scale, right? It's like telling a UK company that you can sell only in the UK and you'll be bigger than a US, or you can compete against the top American AI companies. It's just not the case, right? So our strategy is that we take the best of Southeast Asia, and Southeast Asia has so many strengths. We produce here. We have a huge engineering power. We have 500 engineers here. We're able to produce at great cost. We have great support, great backing, and we also have actually pretty good capital markets as well. And then we use that as our advantage as when we go into a market. So in our case, we're going into Europe because I think China and US are very difficult for us. We're acquiring companies. We're acquiring companies with existing customer bases and distribution scale, and then we're using the products and our engineering capability in Southeast Asia to sell into that larger market and to sell into that distribution customer base that we acquire. Also, just going in, just trying to sell in there is also difficult, which is why we've adopted that kind of acquisition strategy. So that's our approach. But of course, I think we also, have our existing organic core and everything in Southeast Asia. It's just that we think that if there's scale, we have to also capture, a larger market.
Thanks. I really like the global vision that you have on how you're putting yourself at the global level, not just Southeast Asia, and really finding that as, okay, yes, there's a challenge, there's a limited market, but what is the opportunity for us in Southeast Asia, which is the talent, right? The resources that you are leveraging in order to drive that kind of business. And maybe talking about talent, just one more question on that, because you mentioned about how we are out engineering the markets and have a lot of engineers based in Southeast Asia. How are you finding talent here? Given you said how they have been really helpful in terms of building the company as a whole from Southeast Asia. What is your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think, we're quite lucky. I think that there's, first of all, we have a lot of super talented Chinese from mainland coming to help us engineer, and that's a big part of our team, and I think we're very lucky in that sense. But also, we're Southeast Asia in general is a huge melting pot as well, right? So when you put great engineers, whether you're bringing that from overseas or wherever, with our local engineers, and we build the training and the program, and we're able to build scale in that sense, right? So it's about having enough senior talent, and then training, and then building that next level of talent, which I think that we have in Southeast Asia. We have a lot. It's just a matter of putting together the right team, I think.
That's a great strategy. From the investor's perspective, what are you seeing, Abraham, in terms of the challenges that I'm sure you have talked to so many AI companies, or at least they claim themselves as AI. What are the challenges that you think they are facing, and what opportunities do you think you are investing in them? And I know you have already a couple of AI companies, so what do you see in those companies that you invested?
Thanks for that. Maybe let me just start by the challenges that we are facing as an early stage VC right now. So given what happened in the past 3 years, I think all of us in the room realize that we are really in the midst of a tech winter right now. So it all started happening in 2022, and it hasn't ended, to be honest. So it feels like our whole ecosystem here in Southeast Asia, we are having PTSD, right? Everyone's traumatized by tech. So LPs are still waiting for their money to be returned. VCs are focusing on their portfolio companies, and founders are not are not daring enough to go out and start their own startups. I think we look at it differently. So right now, the era of mobile internet, cloud infrastructure, faster internet is over, and a lot of the big verticals that can be tackled using those innovations, I think it's more or less done, and we need to look forward into what's next, right? I think as an ecosystem, as investors, as founders, we need to look into the next big ideas and the next big areas where we can make an impact. I think in the past 15 years, Southeast Asian tech, we've only tackled areas like e-commerce, travel, food deliveries, fintech payments, but there's a lot of other big areas. We're not looking into 20 trillions, but there are 50 billion, 100 billion verticals, things like healthcare. What can anyone name me like a big tech unicorn that really make an impact in Southeast Asia for healthcare? There's not a lot, right? What about education? There's a lot of things that we can do in education, and if you think about what innovation that we have come up with in the past 15 years, I think it's super limited. Agree, all of us. I think in the past 5 years, a lot of startups tried, but a lot of issues there. I can name many other verticals, and I think there's an opportunity to use the latest technology in AI to really solve solutions and make big impacts in this area. And I really admire what Korawat has done, right? And I think this should be a mindset that all of us have in the ecosystem. Previously, when we were investing back in the early 2015 to 2020, we felt like our market is big enough. We always advise our startups, tackle your country first, and then, go regional and then global later. I think, we need to change that. I think we have enough talents. I think a lot of us have experience working in other tech companies, grew up with some of the largest tech companies in the region. I think the mindset needs to be, maybe get to product market fit in your country, get to profit as soon as possible, and think bigger. Don't just think that your market is just your country, but let's go global and follow Korawat's example.
Thank you. So I think the challenges with the funding situation, but also leveraging the different specific verticals that is still a wide space, especially in the country, in the region, and at the global setting, the change of mindset will definitely help with that. Let's switch gear a little bit on regulatory. I think when we talk about AI, there's a lot about data, of course, and then we have to talk about regulatory. In the region here, Southeast Asia, I think there's still a lot of, we're still evolving in terms of how AI regulatory needs to be set up in each country, and every country will have their own regulatory. Maybe from the builder's perspective for Jerry and Korawat, how are you adapting to these regulatory, especially when you're dealing with different countries from China to Indonesia to even the countries that you're going to expand to in the future? How are you adapting or changing the way you're building your product, especially in the AI space?
I think it's always a very big question for in like data security, data privacy, or the regulatory stuff. So for one thing, first is I think overall the first important thing is AI for good. So basically the thing is that we have to make sure that we are adopting AI for example, to facilitate the communication between the customers and the salespeople, right? So this is a lot of regulatory, like legal are trying to understand like the balance between the privacy, the data security, and the convenientness of using AI in daily life. So there are a lot of, as a global company, we actually are adopting a lot of different countries have different regulations, GDPR, PDPA, PDPC, all kinds of regulations. We read through them and make sure that for each of the end users, they use AI for good, for compliant with the regulations. For the other thing is that we make sure that people actually has a consent and has the free to actually to choose if they are going to use AI or not to use AI. They have the free to choose. This is a very important in terms of the in this space. Give the end user the choice. So this is another thing that we are really adapting in all kinds of different scenarios or applications of using AI. But overall, we see we have a lot of countries in the space, especially for like data, cross-border data. It's still an ongoing topic, how we actually are going to manage this data in different places. We built up a lot of data centers in different countries. We actually had data centers in Indonesia. But we have customers say, hey, I want to combine those data to analyze in cross-border space. How do we do that? It's still an ongoing topic we had to solve in the long term. But we are also like working very closely with the regulatory authorities to make sure that we compliant everything with the legal side, and also to drive the regulatory space to actually have a more good for AI and good for people.
Good for people.
Yeah.
It sounds very much like a in-progress type of conversation. There's still a lot of things that's ongoing conversations with both the customers, customized solutions, and also the regulatory side. Any thoughts on that, Korat? Because I think in Europe, they also have a very different regulatory on AI compared to Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I think actually I think that regulatory and laws around data privacy and protection is becoming, it's going to be super important and becoming more and more important, because I think that as the models advance, we are seeing at least what we're seeing is that the trend is that there's going to need to be more and more vertical, industry-specific, vertical, use case-specific models that need to be trained on very large data sets. And in our case, when we look at what the certain industries are specific and we put together the data, we often find that we need to buy more data, that we don't have enough data to train a model. And I think that and so as more and more companies in Southeast Asia start to train and develop vertical, for example, like what you mentioned around healthcare models, very specific models that that you would not be able to, that for example OpenAI could not train against because the data isn't public, then that's when the regulation of each country is going to, I think, really affect the competitiveness of the country. And then how do you achieve the balance between personal individual privacy and the progress of the country? For example, I'll give you an example. Let's say that if Thailand has looser privacy and data laws than Malaysia, for example, just an example. I don't know what the case is, but then it just could be that in the end, the companies that are developing the models in Thailand actually could train better models than the companies in the country with more strict data use regulations. So I think that a really important balance needs to be achieved. And I think that right now, before all the regulations coming, we are seeing a decent balance. For example, we have a lot of data in Europe, and obviously GDPR is some of the highest standards, but even with GDPR regulation, we are able to, for example, redact all the data, individual data, and use a huge amount of data to train our models. I think that right now it's decent, but I think that if the more strict they get, the more difficult it will become. So for example, how much more consent and all that to use user data, the more that will hinder vertical and use case specific AI model development in the countries. And I think it's going to become a race as well between the different countries. Who's going to give the regulation to allow them to train the models first, train bigger models.
Do you see that as an advantage here in Southeast Asia then, given we don't really have many countries who have set up these regulations yet?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's not the case for every single, for example, we have a lot of consumer data in Thailand, but when we train using that data, it's not really relevant for Indonesia, for example, because, in that case, for example, an AI model that predicts consumer behavior, Thai consumer behavior, 20-year-old Thai consumer is completely different from a 20-year-old Indonesian, right? So it will depend on which models are going to proliferate across countries. So for example, a healthcare specific model maybe could apply across the region because there are similarities between different regions. So then that's when it will become kind of, I think, more competitive. But right now, if you talk about vertical models coming out of Southeast Asia, because we have more loose laws. I'm not sure. For example, in Thailand we have quite strict. But is that model relevant for the US or for Europe? I think that's the bigger question, right? If we can find spaces where we have data that OpenAI doesn't have, or that's a corporation, a group, let's say a conglomerate Southeast Asia has, they can use that data to build a model that would be competitive in the US because the US doesn't have the same kind of conglomerate with as much data points, for example. That could be a big advantage, but I think it will really depend, yeah.
Gotcha, thank you. Abraham, any thoughts on how regulators could potentially help startups in the room, especially when they're building or in the midst of building these AI startups? What should regulators bear in mind as they're building their national strategy for the country?
Yeah, so I'm based here in Indonesia, and I think my expertise is more on the country. But so far, Indonesia has been pretty business friendly in implementing various laws around technology, right? I think case in point is our version of GDPR. It's widely similar on a high level with the EU GDPR, and there hasn't been too much of an issue, operating as long as as businesses adopt, common business sense, right? I think at the end of the day, the regulators are pro-business and they want, businesses to thrive. Just specifically mentioning about AI and regulators and the government, I feel like there needs to be, on top of just regulations around AI, I feel like there needs to be more drive from the government to support the industry. Back to my country again, Indonesia, we are probably top 10, top 20 in terms of startup ecosystem in the world, but maybe in the top hundreds for number of research papers published on reputable journals, right? So we are way behind in terms of research in the universities. So I think that's one area that I really feel strongly that the government needs to focus on. Encouraging research partnership between universities and the private sectors. There's a reason why the US and China managed to pull ahead of everyone else, and at the core of it is education, research is the back of innovation that happened from these countries. Maybe also to add another, if there's any regulators or government officials in the room, I want to propose something that's maybe slightly controversial, but we've been talking about, or the government have these policies on domestic market, domestic content. Probably another way to encourage AI startups, the development of AI startups from the different regions, is to encourage companies or government institutions or state-owned enterprises to allocate 5, 10, 20% of their budget, of tech budget, to local startups. Probably that can be another way to encourage startup development in each of the different countries.
Thank you. Thank you for the proposal. I think it's timely. I hope someone in the room could take that. But great, I see that we already have some questions, which is just in time for us to get into the Q&A session. So as you can see here, we can start with the first one. What is the one thing you wish regulators here understood better about AI startups? I think Abraham somewhat answered that a little bit, but maybe anything to chip in from Jerry and Karawat on what is one thing that you wish regulators could understand better?
I think one of the things we see from a lot of the countries is the local government usually give a lot of support in terms of expansion into the sectors.
Expansion into the sectors.
Sometimes they have like programs to actually to be easier to access to, for example, governmental projects. For example, in Singapore, do have green lanes to actually to access those larger products for the startups, which is super important in terms of the startup in the first stage, because they need like customers to have more investments, right?
This is more generic as well, right? Anything specific to AI startups, or you think it's all the same because GTM is key for any early stage companies?
I think it's most important. It's more important for AI because the AI adoption usually it's harder to actually you just go into some of the customers say I want to give you the AI. The customer will say, hey, what kind of things you want to build up? So for most of the AI products build up, it's usually working with the customers. Give some of the spaces to build up the products with the customers. Will be super helpful.
Excess. Anything from Karawat on that?
No, I think a lot of what I shared before around like understanding that the importance of the data and balancing data privacy in order for AI startups to be able to train the models. But also maybe one thing I think is that there's so much government focus, national governments. It's just a headline. Oh, we need our own LLM, or we need our own sovereign AI, whatever that means. But actually, I think that the support needs to be a lot more focused around how do we work with them to what can we offer to help them develop AI models that could actually be competitive in the region or even domestically and enhance domestic development. The government has a lot of data, and many countries are transparent about it. But in Southeast Asia, I think that data is not really published or shared. And I think that if there's a framework where some of that data could be used to support the development of AI vertical or specific AI models for national development, that would be interesting.
That's a very good point. Of course, data is really important in the AI space, and I think with the government, obviously, it could provide the resources for the ecosystem. All right, we can go to the next question here on how do you manage building AI products when you have different data privacy rules in Indonesia, Singapore, and Vietnam? Maybe Jerry, you could help to answer that.
There are a lot of differences that we had to. So the first thing is that I think that the most important is local for local. So for each of the product we build up, we have a GTM process to make sure we comply not only for the regulatory front end, but also, for example, languages, large language models, how to access models. For example, for different countries, we probably need to use different large language models in each of the country to adapt to the regulations. So I think we have to go inside. We hire local people. We understand the local market. We understand the local infrastructure, privacy rules, data security, regulatories.
You mentioned it still goes back to being really customized to the locals, and you have to kind of change accordingly because of the different data privacy rules.
Of course, yes.
Thank you. Karawat, what do you think about the fact that senior talents can use AI to be more productive, eliminating the needs to have junior talents?
Well, I mean, I think yes. Like obviously, the productivity is been enhanced significantly by AI tools and by Windsurf and all this similar. But the question is like if you eventually the senior talent they will grow into different roles. Who will replace them, right? Who's going to run that AI? So that means that the junior talents and the middle level talent and the new talent is so critical for the evolution of the business because obviously everyone needs to grow. So making sure that the next generation is trained, they're capable, and they're getting all of that knowledge and support from the senior talent is critical towards the future of the business, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. We're running a bit of time, so maybe you can just do one last question on how do you, yes, the one with the thumbs up, I think, yes. How does the US-China trade war affect your strategy as an AI company? Is it to your advantage? What are the possible cons? I'll open up to any of you. Yeah, maybe Jerry, you'll be the best person to answer this.
We see actually both challenges and opportunities. The challenge will be more on the supply chain side. So we do have the hardware and see for example, the tariff and also some of the other supply, raw material supply chain that will help. That will increase our cost side. But I think on the other hand, this actually provides a lot of opportunity in this region because obviously the market is more accessible, and also in the same time we can actually when we are adopting the technology in the region, they are more like open spaces. So I think it's an ongoing topic. I think it's the thing is that we live in this time, so we have to adopt for all the AI companies, AI startups has to adopt this fact while actually to seek opportunities in these challenging times.
I like how you're always turning challenges into opportunities. I think that's a great mindset of a founder. Hopefully you don't see this as a challenge, but as an opportunity on how you can, again, go back to customizing the products that you're serving the locals, right? Great. All right, thank you so much for listening and the question, and thank you the panelists, phenomenal discussion here. I hope everyone here enjoyed the session and have a great lunch ahead. Thank you.